Hi everyone, I'm Mike Farmer. We're at the Unified School District's 239 in Minneapolis, Kansas, talking to Chris Veneri, the Superintendent of Schools. And Chris, one of the things that's on everybody's mind, I know, is because of the fact that you're into some capital improvements and construction work for the school. How is that coming along, and have we started yet on the high school? Or where are we in plans and what's going on?
Good question. Now, we have, over at the grade school, I'm sure many people have driven by to catch up on the progress to see what's happening. But as of probably before Christmas break, we should actually have the walls up of the 4 classrooms that we're building.
Good.
Of course, the outer walls. We will also have the curb and the guttering of the parking east of the school. That'll be finished up. Not for sure if the pavement part's going to be done quite before Christmas break, but that part will be done. Also, the expansion of the kitchen at the grade school. The outer wall should be pretty close to being up before Christmas break as well. And then I know during Christmas break that we have some heating and air work that's going to be done on that east wing that needs to be replaced. And so during Christmas break, they'll be in there going through the ceilings and starting to work on that as well.
Good. Of course, that all depends on weather conditions, but you're on schedule as far as you can tell so far then.
Yeah, for the most part. They might be 3 or 4 days behind, but
yeah, that's not bad.
The weather is going to definitely dictate on if this project runs a bit ahead of schedule.
Okay.
I think they've put enough into the schedule that, we have good weather, we'll finish at the time we need to finish. As far as the high school, they started breaking ground about November 24th, so it's been a week or two now that they've already broke the ground. We have no more parking, so the students and the staff, we had to rearrange that on where everybody needed to park. It's going to be difficult for ball games, and we'll come up with something on how to make that work for everybody the best that we can. I mean, we already lacked parking for ball games. This is just going to compound the problem for a while. We probably, we're not going to see a lot of things done until March around the high school. The winter's going to set in, and it's going to be a little more difficult to do the concrete work. So.
Well, moving on then, how did the cost of the project affect the local taxes? Everybody needs to know and wants to know about that.
Yeah, well, just as more of a reminder, an update for those that maybe didn't pay attention to the bond election that we had last April, which
that passed.
It passed, and it passed. It passed well. And one of the discussions that we had throughout the entire time was that we can do this without increasing your taxes more than 1 mil, a mill levy. And I think we told the voters, the taxpayers, that 0.84. That's how much it's going to increase. And actually, we did better than that. We increased our local mill levy by only 0.71 mils on this $10 million project.
Fantastic.
So it was good. So we were able to do that.
Okay, then the project was just under 10 mil. How did that affect your local taxes, though? I mean,
well, how 10 million? How did we make that work? You know, for just 0.71. Basically, if you look up here, anybody that the 0.71, if you own a home for $100,000,
right,
it really did not. It affected you $8.17 for the year.
For the entire year.
For the entire year for a $100,000 home.
Wow.
And so that was a very minimal cost.
It sure is, yeah.
As far as if you were a landowner, most of the land, if you had some pasture land, 160 acres, basically, $1.98 per year on the 160 acres. So just under 2 cents an acre.
Yeah.
Just over a penny an acre is what it cost for that. So it was cost effective, and that was huge. But once again, it was $10 million. So why the little increase? How did that work? Well, one thing with school districts, we have different budgets that we're able to use. And if you once again look at my charts up here, you can see in 14 and 15, 2014-15, we had our mill levy was 52.643. And this year, 53.353, that's a 0.71 increase.
Right.
And we were able to do that by we had 4 mills on our capital outlay. Now,
Okay.
your capital outlay budget is basically for construction.
Okay.
It's for building. It's for keeping up your buildings.
Okay.
Well, by passing this election, we didn't need to put any mill levies, on that budget. So we were able to take away those 4.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
We were able to take away those 4 and put the majority of it onto our bond and interest mill levy. And so by doing that, we were able to, once again, offset the high expenses to make this more affordable over time. And so basically, yes, will we need to put something on that mill levy and capital outlay? Eventually down the road. But as of now, we're doing well in our capital outlay budget. We're not going to need to be spending any money out of that budget for a while.
Right.
And so we are going to be able to keep our mill levy steady. You can see over the years that our school board has done an excellent job with the total mill levy.
They really have. You bet.
They haven't increased a whole lot.
No.
The great part about this is this year's mill levy is less than 2 years ago's mill levy. In fact, it's less than 4 years ago's mill levy, and we've just put a $10 million bond in place.
Boy, that's working the schedule
Well,
really well and really close.
Yeah.
You must have a board that really complements what you're trying to do and working as a community, that they obviously want the education of their children to be top notch, and you can do that within the restraints of the budget, and you've just proven it. So that's kind of a compliment to your board and to your school system here to be able to accomplish that.
Absolutely. The board and the community, they support the school system, and so it sure makes the job easier when that happens.
Well, only one other thing. Is there anything else about the continuing education of the local finances that can tell us about what's going on in school financing for all public schools in Kansas?
Yeah, absolutely. If we've been following the news, we know that this year and next year, the schools have been put on what's called a block grant, okay, on how much funding that the schools are receiving.
Right.
And one of the things that I kind of want to first talk about is how were we funded in the past? In the past, schools were funded based on, it was called a weighting system. Probably the last 20 years we've been funded this way, and it seems to have been working. The only reason that it maybe hasn't been working is because lately it's been underfunded. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. But basically the weightings of schools, they took your enrollment.
Right.
They took, there was another component in there called low enrollment weighting. So if you were a smaller school, you got some extra weighting because you were a small school, okay, to help out the costs. You got what's called at-risk weighting. Your at-risk weighting actually comes from students that qualify for your free meals. So vocational weightings, which is all your students that are in your vocational courses, whether that be your Woods class, your ag classes, your business courses, your FCCLA courses, just different courses that give you some extra weightings to help fund those programs. Transportation, we get money to transport our students that live outside of 2.5 miles.
Right.
And then special education, there's a weighting for that, and then virtual school. Your virtual school, it might be some kids that have some online courses. That's not a very high weighting, but we get a little bit of money to offset some of the expenses there. Now, the old system compared to the block grant system. See, the block grant system now says, here's how much money you're going to get.
And that's it.
That's the money. No matter.
No flexibility at all.
Very little flexibility. They allow for you, if you have an increase in a certain area, they'll allow you to go present your case to a committee in Topeka, and they will give you, for the most part, a portion of it, possibly, and not everybody.
No guarantee.
No guarantee. And so basically, does the block grant hurt Minneapolis? Not as much as it would maybe a larger school system when it comes to the numbers. For instance, we typically might lose 10 students or gain 10 students.
So that's a big difference between a metropolitan area and a small school when it's done on the enrollment basis, or is there?
For the most part it is, but it's a ratio, there's no doubt about it. But if I lose 10 students or I gain 10 students, it's not something that's really going to mess with my budget too much. Now, there are years that I've noticed in the projections or past enrollment, we've lost 30 students. The block grant would hurt us if we were to lose 30 students. I mean, the higher the number of students you're going to lose, then the more money you're going to lose, because you don't get any of that extra weight.
Right.
Or if you're going to gain 30 students, I guess I should say, if we're going to gain 30 students.
And that's not going to happen in a small community like this, or normally it would not.
No, but it has happened.
Has it really?
Yes, it has happened, and that's where you could get hurt with the block grant. The other unfortunate thing with the block grant is there was not an increase in funding from the state, as you and I talked earlier.
Yes.
You know, if you take a look at the chart back in 2008, 2009,
this is very interesting.
This was this is what the state, it was based on their weightings, what they paid for each student, and the weightings that we had, $4,400 back in 08, 09.
Right.
And so now you can see where we are today, basically with the block grant. This is about what the numbers equal out. So you can see over the last 5 years, the money from the state's basically been the same.
Yep.
So what do you do when you have increases in expenses as far as utilities? We've been real fortunate with fuel, with the gas prices being down.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, that hurts the state in tax revenue, but you know, for as far as our expenses, that helps. You know, you do have to give raises. The district hasn't given raises in a few years. They've allowed for the salary steps for teachers to go down the steps, to continue with that.
Yeah, now explain the steps.
Well, each school system has a salary schedule.
Okay.
And so if you've been teaching 10 years, you're at step 10.
Okay.
So the following year you become at step 11, and on that salary schedule there is an increase.
Okay.
And I believe it's, you know, for North Ottawa at step 11 it's $595. And so we give them that step. So roughly for North Ottawa it's around $30,000 a year. And then when you throw in some increases for classified staff, for your bus drivers, your cooks and paras and secretaries, you know, that's an additional $30,000.
Yeah.
So now you're wrapped up, you've got $60,000 just in salary increases. That doesn't include utilities, that doesn't include insurance. That, you know, you've got increases there, but no increase of revenue. I can tell you in the last 6 years, North Ottawa's had over $500,000 in increases in expenses and only 200 and some thousand in increase in revenue.
Gee.
So in the last 5 to 6 years, our revenue has gone down, you know, $300,000.
That's a balancing act, isn't it?
Well, it's definitely not easy to balance. But if one of the side things is each year, if you don't spend all your money, you know, you have a little bit of extra money, and you can put it at the end of the year into other budgets inside of your budget. And what I like to basically simply say, it's a savings account.
You bet.
For the future.
Right.
And so as you can see, if I show you on this chart up here, up in the yellow where it says $1,235,000,
Right.
that is how much money in 08, 09 that we had carried over into our savings. The following year we went up to $1.5 million. And the reason for that was that year that they gave us the most money. That was the year that we had a lot. So we had that money, and we, you know, the North Ottawa County School Board, they were pretty conservative and didn't just spend the money at the end of the year. They put it in a savings account, basically, in other budgets.
Smart move.
Well, each year after, the money from the state has gotten less and less. So the savings account, if you can look, continues to go down. We finished last year with $1,150,000 in our savings account, basically. If the state continues to go on this block grant, if the state continues to not give increases, and we continue without cutting anything,
Right.
Our savings account is going to diminish quickly. In 5 years, you know, we're going to be almost over a half of what we had. But the nice part is we know that, and so we'll get the opportunity to, you know, budget ahead, project that. I can't rely on what the state's going to do. So I have to budget ahead by looking at 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Believe it or not, I have a 20-year projection. I only keep that for me. I give the board a 5-year projection to say this is what we have to do if the money's not there. And so basically, the state, it's not whether, to me, it's not whether we do the weightings or we do the block grant. It's the funding. It's the revenue piece.
Right.
You know, because expenses are expenses, and you can cut only so much.
That
and we
is
have
true.
been cutting. So hopefully that's going to end. Probably not anytime soon, so we just got to continue to be responsible.
Okay. Is there anything else that we need to discuss on the finance portion of the program today?
You know, I think it's important. I think it's important that voters, the patrons, get out there and vote.
Yeah.
You know, I believe Senator Bowers and Representative Concanon, they support education. Those are our representatives, and they support education. So it's not as much maybe voting for who, but just get out there and vote. Understand, get educated on what's happening and where these dollars are going, because schools have been losing money, regardless of what people say and hear.
Yeah.
It is happening, and we are efficient. And I think that's one thing.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
when
very
you have to
important.
make cuts and you have to do things, and you still do them at the same high level, that schools continue to do things at the high level, and you've made cuts, it just means people are working harder.
Yeah.
And so it is difficult. So I think, yes, get out there and vote. That's the big thing.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Share this story with people that you know, and you know, let them have the opportunity to talk to Chris if they've got questions, and watch this program and share it with other people. And we'd like to have you back next month for another program with Chris Veneri, the Superintendent of Schools, and special guest next month. Thank you for watching.